Let's go back in time a few weeks. Do you remember these scenes from January 23rd? Hundreds of cars, trucks, and buses, thousands of people stuck on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. This during blizzard conditions that caused accidents and shut down a 15-mile stretch of the highway. There, people were stuck for almost 24 hours. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured, but there's been a lot of finger pointing over what happened. So much so that the Pennsylvania State Senate held a special hearing this week. A lot of questions came up in that hearing, like what went wrong with the forecast and why was the state so slow in preparing and responding to the storm? Here's what we do know. The Turnpike Commission gets its forecast from a private forecasting company, AccuWeather, that charges them $116,000 a year. We also know that the State Emergency Management Agency hired a full-time meteorologist, Jeff Jumper, back in October. He is paid $62,000 a year. The Turnpike Authority planned to shut down the Turnpike at midnight on the 22nd. Remember that time and date. Over the course of the late afternoon and evening, the snow had increased in intensity and the forecast had increased to 1 to 2 feet. The backups had already begun, though, but the Turnpike Authority was waiting on an updated forecast from AccuWeather that it didn't get until 9:45 that evening. But here's the thing. State meteorologist Jeff Jumper had begun forecasting the storm well in advance. He reviewed the tweets. We saw them sent out by Jumper, and here's what he said. We also reviewed the Turnpike authorities. So let's take a look at their tweets and what they noticed here. So Jeff writes this on the 19th, 3 days before the storm. We're closely monitoring the snow potential for Friday and Saturday. Now is the time to follow Ready PA, which is actually the handle for the Emergency Management Agency of Pennsylvania. What did the Turnpike tweet? Save money, get home quicker with Easy Pass. And a hula girl. Same date, okay? Let's take it to Jeff Jumper the very next day. Now a winter summary from Jeff. Timing, location, type of precip, accumulation hazards, high confidence in the forecast, and noting a high potential for heavy snow on the Turnpike, okay? What does the Turnpike tweet that same day? Do not use cruise control when driving on any slippery surface. No mention of an approaching storm. The next day now, January 21st, here's another update from Jeff Jumper impacting the southern half of Pennsylvania. Timing, heaviest snow, location, type, accumulation, winds, temps, hazards, high confidence in the forecast, and also notice where he's alluding to the snow falling heavily, southern Pennsylvania, where the Turnpike is. Excellent tweet from Jeff. This is what the Turnpike tweets that day. Winter is coming. Pack your car travel kit before it's needed. Be prepared. Again, no mention of a storm that's coming. Here we go now. This is on the 22nd. Timing, dangerous, location, type, accumulation, winds, temperatures, hazard, very high confidence from Jeff Jumper. And again, notice, really pinpointing heavy amounts of snow across southern Pennsylvania. And even notices in red here, dangerous travel between Saturday 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is what the Turnpike tweets. Welcome to the weekend with a photo that's 50 years old. It wasn't, by the way, until 9:38 that night, after the snow had increased in intensity and backups already begun, that they finally acknowledge what the storm is doing. This is 6:38 in the evening. Now in effect, vehicle restrictions. And then later that evening, they end up getting another tweet that's sent out that actually bans travel on the Turnpike. So let's review, shall we? The state's newly hired meteorologist was warning people 3 days in advance and giving specific details about the storm that also included the Turnpike. The Turnpike Authority, meanwhile, failed to communicate early warnings of the storm to its travelers until it was too late. If the Turnpike Authority had actually followed the guidance of its state meteorologist, the entire ordeal may have been avoided. But Jumper's been a lightning rod of controversy even before he took the job. Let's take you back to October when the hiring of Jumper ruffled feathers in the state Senate.
State meteorologist Jeff Jumper starts next week, and when that happens, one state agency will be paying his $62,000 a year contract. PennDOT is currently paying AccuWeather $116,000 for regular forecasts. You know, in the private sector, we'd pick up the phone and just call downstairs and see how the weather's doing, or maybe The governor's office could call PennDOT and find out what AccuWeather has to report today. But this is disgusting.
Well, what's disgusting is a $62,000 state meteorologist who was right, or a $116,000 private service who was wrong. We asked the head of the Turnpike Commission, State Meteorologist Jeff Jumper, State Senator John Rafferty, all of them, if they would appear on Weather Underground this evening. All of them declined or did not return our phone calls or emails. Then we asked for statements for all of them. AccuWeather as well. None of them have responded to our requests. We did talk to the head of the National Weather Service, Dr. Uwe Lucciolini, about how the agency could have helped in this particular situation.
Just to ensure that we get that situational awareness out and we communicate it in such a way that we can talk to the potential impact of what's changing. In other words, not just say, hey, there's a forecast for a particular meteorological event, but actually start communicating what that implies in terms of potential impact.
Let's talk to a man who has extensive experience forecasting in winter weather, our winter weather expert, Tom Nizzle. Tom, what went wrong here? How could this all have been avoided? This is a mess.
It is a mess. I've seen similar messes in my history of working in the National Weather Service, and it all comes down to communication. They had all their ducks in the row. They had a forecasting company. They had a state-employed meteorologist that was on board as well. So the ducks were all in a row. But did the state make that meteorologist available to the Turnpike Commission? Was he there to be able to provide information to them? There's a lot of questions that are left unanswered here, but communication is most important.
And maybe even as meteorologists, sometimes we always think everyone has the same knowledge we do. When you put out the forecast there, you have to tell us what the forecast means, right?
Absolutely, what it means and what the impacts are going to be for your particular customer. Travel was most important here. That had to be highlighted and detailed in that communication.
All right, Tom, thank you very much.